Mm-hmm. What up, guys? We back. We're gonna be reading more Monero. We're in chapter 2, basic concepts. I'm just gonna do something quick. Notify bot coming in clutch. Only here clicking, no reading. Fuck you, Ryan. You abandoned us. Welcome to the stream, though. All right. We are almost ready. I just gotta grab my big jug of apple cider. Okay, so we learned some basic concepts, a lot of math in the last stream. We're on page 22 or 30 of 154. Lots of math, lots of decoding and coding, and other things. So we're going to now go over chapter 2, DSA signature algorithm. Bernstein and his team have developed a number of basic algorithms based on curve ED25519. For illustration purposes, we will describe a highly optimized and secure alternative to the EDCSA signature scheme, which, according to the authors, allow producing over 100,000 signatures per second using a commodity Intel Xeon processor. Based. The algorithm can be found described in the Internet RFC 8032. Note this is a very Schroner-like signature scheme. Among other things, instead of generating random integers every time, it uses a hash value derived from the private key of the signer and the message itself. This circumvents security flaws related to the implementation of random number generators. Also, another goal of the algorithm is to avoid accessing secret, unpredictable memory locations to prevent so-called cache timing attacks. Interesting. We provided an outline of the steps performed in the algorithm. A complete description and sample implementation in Python language can be found in section 75. Wow. Kind of based, if you think about it. Python being used for Monero. Okay, let HK hash, HK, the signer's private key, K. Compute X as a hash and hash X as a hash X. HAKM of the hash private key and message. Depending on the implementation, M, which, if we remember what M stands for, could be the actual message or its hash. Calculate XG and the challenge CH equals H, XG, K, and F. Calculate the response R equals X plus CH, K. The signature is the pair. Verification. Verification is performed as following. Compute CH, H, XG, KM if the equality 2CRG equals 2C XG plus 2CCH plus K holds, then the signature is valid. The 2C Python coding, tell me you're gay without telling me you're not. No hate, just saying. Aren't you a Python developer? The 2C term comes from Bernstein ETL general's form of the EDDSA algorithm. According to the paper, though it isn't required for adequate verification, removing 2C provides stronger equations. Efficient group operations, the twisted Edwards EC, point addition, doubling, mixed addition, and efficient modular arithmetic. Basic concepts, Chapter 2. The public key K can be any EC point, which is the curve point, but we only want to use points in the generator's G's subgroup. Multiplying by the cofactor 2C ensures all points are in that subgroup. Alternatively, verifiers could check LK-0, equals 0, which only works if K is in the subgroup. We do not know any of the weakness caught by these precautions, though, as we will see, the later method is important in Monero, section 3.4. In this scheme, we store one EC point and one scalar, and have one public EC key. Why it works: 2CRG, 2C plus A in A plus H, AG, KM, KG equals 2CAG plus 2CH, AG, KM. K. Binary representation. By default, an EDDSA signature would need 64 plus 32 bytes for the EC point XG and scalar R. However, RFC 8032 assumes point AG is compressed, which reduces the space requirements to only 32 plus 32 bytes. We include the public key K, which implies 32, 32, 32 total bytes. Binary operator XOR. Binary operator XOR is a useful tool that will appear in section 4.4 and 5.3. It takes two arguments and returns true if one, but not both of them is true. Here's the truth table. AB, A, X, O, R, B. T, F, T, F, T, T, F, T, T, F, F, F. Lots of F's, lots of T's. In the context of computer science, XOR is equivalent to bit addition modulo. For example, the XOR of 2-bit pairs, XOR 1, 1, 1, 0 equals 1 plus 1, 1 plus 0 mod 2 equals 0, 1. Each of these also produce 0, 1. XOR 1011, XOR 0001, and XOR 0100. Caret is XOR and C. Caret is XOR and C. I'm not entirely sure what XOR is completely. Maybe I need to do explain like a 5 kind of thing. How does the logic? Oh, one if one or if the other, but not both. True. X order of operations true. True plus true equals false. True or it's binary logic. Hasn't responded to anything I don't know. The fact is math logic. Or is different from the way we use it in everyday language. So if a waiter asks you, if you want soup or salad, both is valid response. XOR is the way we usually think of being used in the same example. Soup, true or false, you get soup. Salad, false or true, you get salad. Both true or true, waiter has to ask you to pick one. Neither false or false, waiter has to ask to pick one. Oh, okay. Interesting. When in doubt, write it out for the functions. True or true equals false. False or false equals false. True or false equals true. False or true equals true. Then you look at it and try. So if A and B are both the same, then false. Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. So it's just it's kind of like that. So like if A and B are the same, they're false. If A is false and B is true, then it's true. True if A is false. Okay. Interesting. I use bit operators all the time. Oh, okay. Like if you had a robot, it's like if robot goes like I'm assuming it's kind of like is it similar to if and then statements? Like if both, like you said, if A and B are both the same, then don't do. But if this comes to this conclusion, then do this. Maybe. Am I right? Did I get it? Or am I retarded? Okay. At the same time, anyone who knows the elements A, B, and C, where C equals XOR, AB can calculate the third element, such as A XOR BC. XOR indicates if two elements are different or the same, so knowing C and B is enough to expose. A careful examination of the truth table reveals this vital feature. One interesting application of XOR unrelated to Monero is swapping 2-bit registers without the third register. We use the symbol X, the symbol, to indicate an XOR operation. A symbol A equals 0. So after 3 XOR operations between the registers A B A symbol B B A B A symbol B B symbol A symbol B equals A symbol B A symbol 0 equals A symbol B A symbol B symbol A B A. Interesting. Chapter 3, guys. A basic Schoner signature has one signing key. As it happens, we can apply it to its core concepts to create a variety of progressively more complex signature schemes. One of those schemes, mSlag, will be of central importance in Monero's transaction protocol. Proven knowledge of a discrete logarithm across multiple bases. It is often useful to prove the same private key was used to construct public keys on different base keys. For example, we could have a normal public key, KG, and a Diffie-Hellman shared secret, KR, with some other person's public key, recall section 2333, where the base key are G and R. As we will soon see, we can prove knowledge of the discrete log K in KG, prove knowledge of K in KR, and prove that K is the same in both cases, all without revealing K. Interesting. Prove knowledge of a discrete logarithm across multiple bases, and often we use okay. Now non-interactive proof. Suppose we have a private key and a D base keys J equals J1 and JD. The corresponding public keys are K, K1, KD. We make a shortening-like proof recall across all bases and assume the existence of a hash function Hn mapping to the integers of 0 to L minus 1 to the power of 2, I think. No, 1 to section 2. Chapter 3, Advanced Schroeder-like signatures. Generate a random number XERZ and compute for all, i.e. 1DXJ. Calculate the challenge. C equals HN JK XJ 1 XJ2 XJD. Define the response. R equals XC times K. Publish the signature. CR. Verification. Assuming the verifier knows J and K, he does the following. Calculate the challenges. D equals H JK R J1 CK1 RJ2 CK2 RJD CKD. If C equals C, then the signer must know the discrete logarithm across all bases, and it's the same discrete logarithm in each case, as always, except with negligible probability. Why it works. Instead of D base keys, there was just one. This proof would clearly be the same as our original Schroeder proof. We can imagine each base key in isolation to see that the multi-base proof is just a bunch of Schroeder proofs connected together. Moreover, by using only one challenge and response for all those proofs, they must have the same discrete logarithm K. To get a single response that works for multiple keys, the challenge would need to be known before defining an X for each key, but C is a function of X. Multiple private keys in one proof. Much like multiple base proofs, we can combine many Schroeder proofs that use different private keys. Doing so proves we know all the private keys for a set of public keys and reduces storage requirements by making just one challenge for all proofs, non-interactive proofs. Suppose we have a D private keys K1, KD, and base keys J, J, J. The corresponding public keys are K, K1, KD. We make a Schroeder-like proof for all the keys simultaneously. There's no reason I can't contain duplicate base keys here for all base keys to be the same. Duplicates would be redundant for multiple base proofs, but we now are dealing with different private keys. Chapter 3, Advanced Schroeder-like signatures. Generate random number for compute all. Define. Okay, verification. Same thing. Spontaneous anonymous group. SAG signatures. Base keys sound base. True. They do sound based indeed. Group signatures is a way of proving real and non-math. Yeah, we're using math to be anonymous, among us. This is pretty interesting too, because I don't really understand all of it, but it is kind of under like let's see if they're correct. Oh, wow. Asked two girls to prom. If one says yes, the other says no. That's the girl you take. If they both say yes, you just call in sick and cancel. If they both say no, don't go. XOR only really evaluates true to be true, but not both. This is how this is how it should be. This is the best analogy. I understand it now, guys. Asked two girls to prom. Interesting. This is awesome. Okay. So spontaneous anonymous group SAG signatures. Group signatures are a way of proving Center belongs to a group without necessarily identifying him. Originally, Chanum group signature schemes required the system to be set up and in some cases managed by a trusted person in order to prevent illegitimate signatures, and in a few schemes, adjudicated disputes. These relied on a group secret, which is not desirable since it creates a disclosure risk that could undermine anonymity. Moreover, requiring coordination between group members, i.e. for setup management, is not scalable beyond small groups or inside companies. Liu et al. Presented a more interesting scheme, building on the works of Rivest et al. In 119. The author detailed a group signature algorithm called LSAG, characterized by three properties: anonymity, linkability, and spontaneity. Here we discuss SAG, the non-linkable version of LSAG, a conceptual clarity. We reserve the idea of linkability for later sections. Schemes with anonymity and spontaneity are typically referred as ring signatures. In the context of Monero, they will ultimately allow for an unforgeable ambiguous transactions that leave currency flows largely untraceable. Based. Yeah, this is something that I think everyone kind of like figures out and it becomes aware of when you get into Monero. Is one of its strong components is ring signatures. This is what FMCP++ is supposed to build upon and be like super like. Think of like ring signatures, but on crack, like a crackhead smoked a bunch of fucking crack in there. Like I'm gonna give this to all my friends, and we're all gonna go out and fucking have a bunch of kids, and then they're gonna smoke crack, and then everyone kind of looks. It's just like it creates thousands of signatures tens of thousands of signatures. The analogy was terrible, but it's like It's like instead of you and your group of friends throwing a $20 bill into a hat and all pulling out the $20 bill and asking whose is whose, it's like you going to an EDM fest and everyone throwing in a $20 bill and pulling out that $20 bill and everyone is like whose is whose kind of thing. Advanced Schoner-like signatures. Okay. So here we are at the signature part. Ring signatures are composed of a ring and a signature. Each ring is a set of public keys. One of them belongs to the signer and the rest of which are unrelated. These signatures are generated with that ring of keys, and anyone verifying it would not be able to tell which ring member was the actual signer. When I read academic stuff, I don't get the first glance. A really good and free LLM helps a lot. Not Microsoft Code is really good as ChatGPT, but it costs. Actually, there's an academic one that I like even more, but it's not important. There's a science person I watch, and they have like it's not really a AI assistant or anything, but it breaks down complex academic papers and asks. You can ask it academic questions and it'll lead you kind of to it. It's pretty cool. I have a bookmark somewhere, I can't remember, but yeah. if I don't understand something, I like it to, I do like to hear, like, oh, like if you explain it like I'm five. Okay. So ring signatures are composed of a ring and a signature. Each is ring. Yep. The signature is generated with that ring of keys, and anyone verifying it would not be able to tell which ring member was the actual signer. Our shortener-like signature scheme in section 2.35 can be considered one key ring signature. We get two keys by instead defining R right away, generating a decoy R and creating a new challenge to define with R. Let M be the message to sign R equals K1, K2, Kn, a set of distinct public keys, a group / ring, and Km signing Km, the signer's private key corresponding to his public key. K, I think that's the pi symbol, ER, where pi is a secret index. Generate a random number, generate a number XERZL, and fake a response, RIERZI, for I, E, 1, 2, N, but excluding I equals pi. Calculate, a bunch of calculations. Oh, really good at math, I was trying to say. Oh, I'm terrible at math. Anyone who's good at math is awesome. I'm bad at it. For I pi, I calculate the representative, define the okay. The ring signature contains the signature M, C1, R1, Rn, and then the ring R. Verification means proving M is a valid signature created by a private key corresponding to a public key R without necessarily knowing which one, and is done in the following manner. For 1 equals 1, 2, N, interactively compute replacing N plus 1 equals 1, C1 plus 1, HRM, GRI, K, C2K. If C1 equals C1, then the signature is valid. Note that C1 is the last term calculated. In this scheme, we store 1 plus N integers and use N public keys. I'm shit too. I mean, DeepSeek is really good at solving math. Of course, it was made by the Chinese. Why it works. We can informally convince ourselves that the algorithm works by going through an example. Consider ring R equals K1, K2, K3 with K pi equals K2. First, the signature. Generate a random number, X, R1, R3. Seed the signature loop. C3 equals HN, RM, A to G. I iterate. C1, HRM, G3, C2, HN, RM, R1, G, C1, K1. Close the loop by responding R2 equals X, C2K, mod 1. We can substitute X into C3 and see where in the word ring comes from. C3, HN, RM, R2, C2, K2, G2. The verification using R and XM, C1, R1, R2, R3. We use R1 and C1 to compute. C2, HN, RM, R1, G. I'm going to be dreaming about this shit, about numbers. From where we made this compute, we can easily see that C3 equals C3, substituting for C2 using R3 and C3, we get, okay, no surprise here, C1 equals C1 if we substitute C3 for C3. Interesting. What about R2D2? Yeah, what is R2D2's what is he actually written in? Back's linkable spontaneous anonymous group, BLSAG signatures. The ring signatures seem discussed here on out. Yeah, this is something I did think about. Like, how does the ring signature know who's the real? I know, like, it outputs 40, like 16 rings, like 16 signatures, like 16 signers, but only one's the true one. But how does it know which one is the true one without disclosing any information? Interesting, yeah. The ring signature scheme discussed on here out displays several properties that will be useful for the producing confidential transactions. Note that both the signer ambiguity and the forgeability also applies to SAG signatures. Keep in mind that all robust signature schemes have security models which contain various properties. The properties mentioned on here are perhaps most relevant to understanding the purpose of Monero's ring signatures, but are not comprehensive overview of linkability ring signature properties. Signer ambiguity. An observer should be able to determine that the signer must be a member of the ring, except with negligible probability, but not which member. Monero uses this obfuscation the origin of funds in each transaction. Linkability. If a private key is used to sign two different messages, then the messages will become linked. As we will show, this property is used to prevent double spending attacks in Monero, except with negligible probability. Unforgeability. No attacker can forge a signature except with negligible probability. This is used to prevent the theft of Monero funds by those not in possession of the appropriate private keys. In the LSAG signature scheme, the owner of the private key could produce one anonymous unlinked signature per ring. In this section, we present an enhanced version of the LSAG algorithm where linkability is independent of the ring's decoy members. Signature. As with SAG, let M be the message to sign. R equals K1, K2, Kn, and a set of distinct public keys. And the key, K and K pi, the signer's private key corresponding to his public key, ER, where pi is the secret index and assumes the existence of the hash function HP, which maps to curve points in EC, the elliptic curve. Calculating key image, K pi, KP, K pi, and 12. Right here. Anonymity for an action is usually in terms of anonymity set, which is all the people who could have possibly taken that action. The largest anonymity set is humanity, and for Monero it is the ring size, or e.g. the so-called mix-in level. V plus, the real signer. Mix-in refers to how many fake members each ring signature has. If the mix-in is V equals 4, then there are 5 possible signers. Expanding anonymity sets makes it progressively harder to track down the real actors. The linkability property does not apply to non-signing public keys. This is a ring member whose public key has been used in different ring signatures and will not cause linkage. Certain ring signature schemes, including the one in Monero, are strong against adaptive chosen message and adaptive chosen public key attacks. An attacker who can obtain legitimate signatures for chosen messages and corresponding to specific public keys in rings of his choice cannot discover how to forge the signatures even one message. This is called existential unforgettability, C 108 and 85. In the LSAG scheme, linkability only applies to signatures using rings with the same members in the same order, the exact same ring. It is really one anonymous signature per ring member per ring. Signatures can be linked even if made for different messages. LSAG was discussed for the first edition of this report. It doesn't matter if points from HP are compromised or not. They can always be decompressed. Monero uses hash function that returns curve points directly rather than computing some integers that is SRC ring. That is then multiplied by G. HP would be broken if someone discovered a way to find NX, such as NRG equals HPX. See a description of the algorithm in 107. According to the CryptoNote white paper, its origin was in this paper. In Monero, it's important to use the hash to point function for key images instead of another base point, so linearity doesn't lead to linking signatures created by the same address, even for different one-time addresses. That is something that Monero has always kind of pointed out that people need to do, is not only run their own node, but have like different addresses, like you have sub-addresses, and that is huge. A lot of hardware wallets are coming now with multiple sub-addresses to reduce linkability, and running your own node is going to be the best option. If it is too expensive to run your own node, then use a somewhat private, respecting node. That's kind of like not really an easy statement to make. Or if you can, most importantly, use Tor. Use a wallet that supports Tor. There are a couple of them. And then if you can, send all those sweet Moneros that you bought, instead of having them on a hot wallet, send them to a cold wallet connected to Feather wallet that forces everything through Tor, and then use that on Tails. That would be the best way to do it, is to take Monero, send it to a hardware wallet that is connected to Feather wallet as a view-only key on Tails, to make sure that everything is running through Tor when it's receiving it and when it's sending it out. That would be the most secure, optimal option. Advanced Scheiner-like signatures. Generating a random number. XERZ1 random numbers are IERZ1 for IE, 1, 2, N, but excluding I equals pi. Compute some numbers. Best way is just to send you everything I have. Yeah, I'll keep your Monero safe. Verification, some more verification. In this scheme, we store, I will keep it safe. 100%. Fed's honor. The glowies would never lie to you. In this scheme, we store a 1 plus n integers and have one elliptic curve key image and use the n public keys. We must check LK equals 0 because it is possible to add an elliptic curve point from the subgroup size H, the confactor, to K, and if all Ci are multiples of H, which we could achieve with the automated trial and error using different X and R values, make H unlinkable valid signatures using the same ring and signing key. This is because an elliptic curve point multiplied by its subgroup order is 0. To be clear, given some point K in the subgroup of order I, some point of K with order H and integer C divisible by H. Interesting. Well, I can highlight. Oh. We can demonstrate the correctness, i.e. how it works, in a similar way to the most simple SAG signature scheme. In our description, attempt to be faithful to the original explanation of BL-SAG, which does not include R in the hash that calculates, including keys in the hash that is no key prefixing. Recent research suggests that it may not be necessary, although adding the prefix is standard practice for similar signature schemes. Advanced generalized signatures. Given two valid signatures are different in some ways, different fake responses, different messages, different overall ring members. If K equals K, then clearly both signatures come from the same private key, while an observer can link O and O with a little dash thingy in the air. He wouldn't necessarily know which KI in R or R was the culprit unless there was only one common key between them. If there was more than one common ring member, only his resource would be solving the DLP or auditing the rings in some way, such as learning all KI with I equals pi or learning K pi. Multi-layered linkability spontaneous anonymous group, ML-SAG signatures. In order to sign transaction, one has to sign with multiple private keys. In Shen Nother et al. Describes a multi-layer generalization of the BL-SAG signature scheme, applicable when we have a set of n.m keys. That is the set R equals Kij for IE12 n and then JE12 m, where we know the m private keys corresponding to the subset for K pi for some index I equals pi. Such algorithm would address our needs if we generalize the notion of linkability. Linkability: if any private key is used in two different signatures, then those signatures will be automatically linked. Given two valid signatures that are different in some ways, e.g., different fake response, different message, different overall ring member. Oh, nope, this is the one we need. LSAG, which is quite similar to BLSAG, is unforgeable, meaning that no attacker could make a valid ring signature without knowing the private key. If he invents a fake K and seeds his signature computation with C pi plus 1, then not knowing Km, he can't calculate a number of R pi equals X CKM that would produce RMG plus C pi K pi equals AG. A verifier would reject his signature. Liu et al. Proved forgeries that manage to pass verifications are extremely improbable. Monero ML-SAG uses key prefixing. Each challenge contains explicit public keys like this, adding the K terms absent from BL-SAG. Key images are included in the message signing. So it makes forgery, I'm assuming, much harder. Like, people can't just steal your keys and then forge your signing. In order to sign transaction, one has to sign with multiple BL-SAG. Oh yeah. Some linkability. If a private key K pi is reused to make any signature, the corresponding key K supplies and the signature will reveal it. The obfuscation mats are generalization definition of linkability. In this scheme, we store 1m plus integers and have mc key images and use m plus m public keys. As with BLSAG, linked MLSAG signatures do not indicate which public keys were used to sign it. However, if the linking key image subloops rings have only one key in common, the culprit is obvious. If the culprit is identified, all other signature signing members of both signatures are revealed since they share the culprit's indices. Chapter 3, Advanced Concise Linkable Spontaneous Anonymous Group, CLSAG. CLSAG is sort of a halfway between BLSAG and MLSAG. Suppose you have a primary key and associated with several auxiliary keys. It is important to prove knowledge of all private keys, but linkability only applies to the primary. The linkability retraction allows smaller, faster signatures than afforded by MLSAG. As with MLSAG, we can have a set of n m keys. N is the ring size, m is the number of signing keys, and the primary keys are at index. In other words, there are n primary keys, and the pi th such key and its auxiliaries will sign. R equals Kij for IE 1 2, J 2 1 2. We know the private keys corresponding to the subset for some index I equals pi. This paper section is based on pre-print being finalized for external reviews. CSLAG is promising as a replacement for MLSLAG in the future protocol versions, but has not been implemented and might not be in the future. The CLSLAG paper says to use different hash functions for domain separation, which we model by prefixing each hash with tag EGT1 CLSAG T and then CLSAG C, etc. Domains separated with hash functions have different outputs even with the same inputs. We also use key prefixing here, including R, which has all the keys in the hash. Domain separating is a new policy for the Monero development and will likely be done with the L applications and the hash function added in the future. Historical use of hash functions will probably be left alone. This is pretty much talking about different, like signatures, probably a verification, etc. The biggest danger, in concise signatures like this key cancellation, where the key image reported aren't legitimate, yet still some legitimate aggregate value. This is where the aggregation coefficients come into play, locking down each key to its expected value. We leave tracing out of the circular repercussions of faking a key as the same image as exercise to the reader. Perhaps start by imagining those coefficients don't exist. Auxiliary key images are an artifact of proving that primary image is legitimate, since the aggregate private key, which contains all the private keys, is applicable to be base point HP K pi to the power of 1. If a private key is reused to make any signature, the corresponding primary key image K1 supplied in the signature will reveal it. Auxiliary key images are ignored, so they only exist to facilitate the concise part of CSLAG. I need your private key to send you the money. I'll tell you tomorrow, same time. We store 1n integers and have m keys images and use mn public keys. In Monero, we would only check L times K1 for 0 for the primary key image. Auxiliary keys would be stored 1/8 times K, and during the verification, multiply by 8. Recall section 2, which is more efficient. The method discrepancy is an implementation choice. Since linkability key images are very important and so shouldn't be messed with aggressively, the other method was employed prior to protocol versions. Monero addresses. That was a lot of math, guys. Reading myself while listening to you, reading signatures are pretty interesting. They are very interesting on how they work because it's like Monero is self-aware enough to know which, when you like send a Monero transaction, it creates 16 counterfeit transactions, but one's real. And Monero is aware of which one's real when they're signing these transactions, which is pretty awesome. Because, like, say I send you $5 in Monero. It sends out 16 transactions, but only, from what I understand, one of them is signing it. And it's like, hey, I know one of you guys signed this, so you're good. I don't know which one, but one of you did. It's kind of cool. I think that's what I'm getting from it, if I understand correctly. Pretty much addresses the big one. The ownership of digital currency stored in the blockchain is controlled by so-called addresses. Addresses are sent money which only the address holder can spend. More specifically, an address owns the outputs from some transactions, which are like notes giving the address holder spending rights to an amount of money. Such a note might say, address C now owns 5.3 XMR. It's kind of like a permission slip. This is why air-gapped is so. Before we continue, air-gapped cold wallets are kind of like it's kind of like this. It's like a permission slip. So the hardware wallet holds the Monero on it, and you may think, well, how do I send it? Because it pretty much holds the private key, the thing that you need the most, the signing key. The big daddy, the sexy private key. So the private keys are stored on an air-gapped wallet, and then you have a secondary wallet to view only. Only it can view. Now, the secondary wallet, you need to send the Monero from there because the offline wallet essentially doesn't know what's going on. It's unaware. It's like lost in time, kind of, because it's offline. So when you need to send Monero, you first generate an address, and you send this address, this Monero, to another party. Now, you need to verify this. You're kind of like asking like your wallet, like, hey, we need to spend some money. We're going to spend it. So your Monero address, your Monero wallet is like, hey, I need you to show proof of this transaction. And that proof of transaction is kind of like validated through scanning you pretty much scan a QR. You can do this all now. The old boomer way to do it is completely offline. You essentially transfer the transaction ID to like the hardware wallet, and then the hardware wallet signs it, and then you send it back to the hot view only wallet. And it's like, all right, cool, you signed it, and then you validate it, and then you send it back. It's like 4 transactions. Hardware wallets are much easier. It's like, my video will be out soon on how to take money via hardware wallet, how to use it, and how to spend it. But I digress. To spend an owned output, the address holder reference is the input to a new transaction. This new transaction has outputs owned by the other address, or by the sender's address, if the sender wants. A transaction's total input amount equals to the total output amount. And once spent, an owned output can't be respent. Carol, who has address C could reference that old output in a new transaction, e.g., in this transaction, I like to spend that old output, and add a note to saying address B now owns 3.5 XMR. In address balance is the sum of amounts contained in the unspent outputs. We discussed hiding the amounts from observers in Chapter 5, in the structure of transactions in Chapter 6, which includes how to prove that you are spending an owned output and previously unspent output without even revealing which output is being spent, and then money creation process and the role observations in Chapter 7. Don't forget, guys, lots of chapters. Unlike Bitcoin, Monero users have two sets of private and public keys, KV, KV, and KS, KS, generated and described in section 2.3.2. The address of the user is the pair of public keys, KV, KS, and her private keys will be the corresponding pair, KV, KS, small. Like, okay, I kind of get it now. So the two public keys are like big and like everyone should be able to, if it goes through a whole decoy public keys, it goes through the whole decoy of public keys until that one matches to the one private keys, right? Yeah, I'm assuming that's how it figures it out. It's like without revealing any information, though. It's just a probability. It's like this is probably the private key. I'm assuming without revealing any information about it. But again, you have to remember when you're operating on other people's nodes with Monero, you are essentially entrusting it. This is where maybe we'll learn how nodes can de-anonymize you. Breaking Monero has a really good like I guess like problems with Monero. It's kind of old, but there are some, I think there's some malice to it. But I digress. We'll probably get to the answer. User keys. Okay. One-time addresses. To receive money, a Monero user may distribute their address to other users, who can then send its money via transaction outputs. The address is never used directly. Instead, a Diffie-Hellman-like exchange is applied to it, creating a unique one-time address for each transaction output to be paid to the user. In this way, even if external observers who know all the user's addresses cannot use them to identify which user owns any given transaction output. Let's start with a very simple mock transaction containing exactly one output, a payment of 0 amount from Alice and Bob. Bob has a private and public keys, KVB, KSB, and KVB, KSB. Alice knows his public keys, his address. The mock transaction could proceed as follows. Alice generates a random number RE2Z and calculates the one-time address. But Monero hides the IP address with a special protocol. It's not the IP address that you have to be worried about. There's I would if I wanted to know what it was, I would quickly Google, just do a quick Brave search, and figure out what I think nodes can do something malicious that can reveal and provide some linkability. This is why people are saying like Monero has linkability. Its solution has always been to run your own node. This is why the Monero GUI wallet always suggests running your own node. So that is I don't think it's an IP address thing. I think it's something else, but we'll figure it out. Just stick around for the stream. This is gonna be a long series, I think. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. We're gonna read Zcash after we're done reading this. We're gonna read Zcash. Maybe I should do some notes. Interesting. Create a document. How much money does it cost to host your own node? Give or take approximately wise. Free if you have the hardware. I mean, if you use the Monero GUI wallet, like just the bare Monero GUI wallet, it has a built-in node you can run and use 100%. It takes storage, but to run a ballpark estimate, it's very inexpensive. I would not host one, and you can make it where it's not publicly accessible. First, you would have to lock down your node, but you can do KYC not. But I would look into if you want to stay away from AWS and anything centralized, I would look into Flux. But VPS that accepts Monero would be the best option, but you have to remember they have no legal obligation to you. I've heard really good things about SporeStack. They have good privacy, but their trust is not there. Terms explicitly states KYC will never be requested. The service manages your private keys and keeps custody of your funds. These wallets are typically offered centralized exchange like Coinbase. By the way, sorry for the derail, but it has been eating me inside. I was wanting to ask you, because you are first off, Debian garbage, and you're entrusting another party to do the proxy chains for you. You are doing it with Tor, but Tor has more merit. You essentially should just do the proxy change yourself. That's all really a non-surf is. Just do the proxy change by yourself, in my opinion. That is my reasoning. You're putting a lot of trust into something that I don't think is. It's kind of like Tor and Brave. I don't trust Tor and Brave. I think it's bad. I think it's a bad idea to do that. I say use Tails if you really care. Proxy chains also have their negatives. They're not really good. They have like their downsides. Tor is probably your best option. Just use Tor, like normal Tor. And if you want system-wide Tor, there's ways you can set that up like yourself. You can use the terminal through Tor with the Tor browser bundle, I believe. Or you can set up everything to do proxy chains. But again, now you're trusting the proxy chains. I mean, it's kind of one of those complicated, nuanced things. So it seems like the best option is SporeStack and MyNumpbox. May suspend your account, by the way. Their trust is pretty low. I see. Thank you. I thought a non-surf was like standard amongst Linux. No, there's a lot of things that that Linux people consider standard for Linux. There's a lot. It seems like these are your two options. Their trust is not really there. Pricing market rate for 1 gig, so $5 a month. Oh. Hosting for Monero, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash. Providers, we currently offer Virtual and Digital Ocean. You can safely ignore the dummy provider as just a testing purpose of favors. So they do. I just launched a server, but it's not online. How long did it? Is SportStack free speech hosting? It's possible that Vulture and Digital might be uncomfortable hosting server free speech content. Okay. Mainly because in-house hosting is a huge undertaking. We've done it before, and we could do it again, but we have such good luck with Vulture and DigitalOcean that there's no need for support. Okay. Well, I can't see my server email. Can I set up to a relay? Yes, but only a guard and middle relay. We know we would get hassled way too much over exit nodes. They get DMC notice within hours. Is SportStack Wild West of the internet? No, Sport. Interesting. Can you set up Monero dark web market for me? No. Can I host my website? If you insist on torrenting, despite legality, a seed box or something like Poot.io might be your best bet. Interesting. If my server is powered off, will it expire at the same time? My server expired. What happened to Torified hosting? For some time, we offered some Torified flavors. What's with the new host name? What is Spore.garden? An up-and-coming domain offering SportStack users. You'll be able to pick something. Spore.garden have associated with it with server. We'll do either name. Okay. This will be the easiest on bare metal. You can reboot, use the VNC console, control IB instance, pick your installer, the VNC console. Bootable under this. Same disk probably will. That's fine. Should I do anything after the server is launched? We recommend resetting the root password. Is this NSA honeypot? Probably not. I work in law enforcement. I do want to learn more about SportStack. Where I best places are law enforcement frequently. If you read through that, feel free. The fuck? Within 90-day window, we know that service was started or stopped via API, launched, deleted. Logs are retained for 90 days. These logs mostly show timing information about server creation and actions such as remote stuff. Probably not very much. Our database records go back 90 days. How do I know if my server is hosted on SportStack? Actually, I'm not actually law enforcement. I'm a user. I find this very good. We don't blame you. We exist in the U.S. and have to comply with certain laws. Oh, interesting. I don't know how I could possibly use XMR to buy anything physical, because packages and customs. If I was in a USA, I couldn't buy anything with XMR shipped domestically. You can buy a lot of digital stuff. You can actually buy Malvad VPN. You can donate to not an FBI honeypot and make them super rich and a millionaire. You can purchase digital gift cards that have digital codes that you can use. And then same thing with other places. You can just go in and use digital gift cards if it's allowed. I pay for my email. I pay for Tutanota with Monero. I actually pay for a lot of digital products with Monero that I use on a constant basis. There's lots of digital products that exist out there. This is why I like KYC, not me, and Monerica, because it gives you places that like, hey, we have Monero options and verified proof. RetroSwap is pretty cool. If you want to obtain Monero, JMP is pretty based. XMR Bazaar, IVPN, lots of different stuff. Everything's gonna have its Shopping Bit is like a new service, I think. I don't know how new they are, but we only do 10s, baby. Addy.io is pretty good. I've been using it for a long time. I hope they do not ever kill my account. These servers can terminate access to service at any time without notice at their sole discretion. Hope that they never do that to me. They are very based and do love Monero, but they probably would only do it if they saw like illegal activity. I'm assuming. Proxy Store is great. I've used them. Silent Link, never used it. Very expensive though. But their data, Orange Friend. Aggregator. Nice VPS, anonymous hosting provider. You have to remember that they may suspend your account. So you could use places like this. Their pricing is probably expensive. So $16 a month, you know. Yeah, I'm trying to land a job in a couple of months, then I'll definitely invest into some non-binary cash. It's always good to do it when you are employed and not unemployed. Remember, spend your money and obtain anonymous money responsibly. Okay. Back to addresses. Alice generates a random number RERZ and calculates the one-time address. To communicate an address to another user, it is extremely common to encode in a base 58. Base 58, a binary to text encoding scheme first created for Bitcoin. See 5 for more details. It is currently most common for the view key to equal H and K. This means a person only needs to save their spend key in order to access, view, and spend. All the outputs they own, spend, and unspent. The spend key is typically represented as a series of 25 words, where the 25th word is a checksum. Other, less popular methods include generating K something and then K8 as a separate random numbers, or generating a random 12-word mnemonic A, where K equals sec reduced 32, key cake, key ekek, and K, and then sec reduced 32, kek. This method described here is not enforced by the protocol, just by wallet implementation standards. This means an alternate wallet could follow the style of a Bitcoin, where I would only obtain the ultra paranoid way. Don't worry, man. The ultra paranoid way is via cash. Not even really swapping is probably, because you don't have to leave your house and no one knows who it is, really. The style Bitcoin where receipts address are also included directly in the transaction data, such as non-compliant wallet would produce transaction outputs unusable by other wallets, and each Bitcoin Esquire address, Bitcoin SK address could only be used once during key image uniqueness, except with negligible probability. In Monero, every instance, including what it's used for other parts of the transaction, the RKG is multiplied by the cofactor 8. So in this case, Alice computes 8 RKB and Bob computes 8 KBRG. As far as we can tell, this serves no purpose, but it is a rule that users must follow. Multiplying by the cofactor ensures the resulting point is in G subgroup, but if R and K don't share a subgroup to begin with, they are discrete logs. R and K can't be used to make a shared secret regardless. Chapter 4 Monero addresses. Alice sets K, so the address of payment adds the output amount 0 and the value of RG to the transaction data, and submits it to the network. Bob receives the data and sees that values are G and K. He can calculate KVBRG and K and RKVB. He can calculate KB equals K0 minus HN or KVBG, where he sees that KB is KSB and he knows the output address is to him. The private key is called the view key because anyone who has it, and Bob's public spend key, can calculate KB for every transaction output on the blockchain, records of transactions, and view which ones belong to Bob. The one-time keys for the output are KHN, some more words with H's and N's and G's and B's. To spend his zero amount output, SIC, in a new transaction, all Bob needs to do is prove ownership by signing a message with the one-time key, K0. The private key, the key is, the view key is somewhat important too, and the spend key, you kind of want to keep those private as well because it kind of gives off a lot of information. When you have a hardware wallet, you kind of learn this, like what parts of your keys, like you should show and you can't show, and you probably shouldn't. The private key is the spend key, since it is required for providing output of ownership. Well, because you own this key, they're like, you're signing it. You're like, I own this. The view key. This is how like you do it when you're doing a cold wallet transaction. Since it is ownership, while KB is the view key, since it can be used to find out outputs spendable by Bob. As will become clear in Chapter 6, without K0, Alice can't compute the output. Key images, so she can never know for sure Bob spends the output she sent him. Bob may give third party his view key, such as the third party could be trusted custodian, an auditor, a tax authority, etc. Somebody who could be allowed to read access to the user's transaction history without any further rights. The third party would also be able to decrypt the output's amount, to be explained in Section 5.3. See Chapter 8 for other ways. Bob can provide information about his transaction history. Yeah, cash buy is not very possible in my area. There are pretty privacy-oriented services that you can pay for someone else to buy XMR. I could circulate those services multiple times. Yeah, if you search, so there is an argument that if obviously your identity is hidden, Monero's privacy is so good that you could buy it on a KYC exchange, send the Monero to said thing, and it would essentially be somewhat anonymous to the point where you may want to mix a couple times and then use your own, node at the end of the day. Use your own node, but you could do some purchasing of Monero with KYC exchanges, and all they know is you bought like a coin like Litecoin, Bitcoin, Lightning, and you could send it to you could just swap it with RetroSwap or another exchange where they do this, and then send it to your wallet on your own node, and then maybe circulate it through a couple more wallets for a couple bucks. Soda. Oh, System of a Down. So there is some argument that if you have a custodial wallet, businesses could accept Monero and you theoretically could show them all your transaction history to show like how much it was at those transactions, and they could pay their taxes. It's not impossible to operate on Monero and to be able to. I mean, Mulvad's not from the fucking United States. They live in like a country where they probably get heavily like audited for their taxes, etc. Just let that one sink in. Like, how does Mulvad operate it? How do they accept Monero? I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know how Mulvad accepts their Monero. Multiple output transactions. Most transactions will contain more than one output, if nothing else, to transfer change back to the sender. KB compute with derived subaddress public key because normal addresses spend keys are stored at index 0. In the spend key lookup table, while subaddresses are at the end are oh, I said soda, not Soed. But my favorite song of Soed are Needles and ATWA. Zero in the spend key lookup table while subaddresses are at indices. This will make sense soon. See section 4.3. Imagine Alice produces two transactions, each containing the same one-time output address K, that Bob can spend. Since K only depends on R and KVB, there are no reason she can't do it. Bob can only spend one of those outputs because each one-time address only has one key image. If he isn't careful, Alice might trick him. She could make transaction 1 with a lot of money for Bob, and later transaction 2 with a small amount for Bob. If he spends the money in 2, he can never spend that money in 1. In fact, no one can spend that money in 1, effectively burning it. Monero wallets have been designed to ignore the smaller amount in this scenario. Actually, as of protocol v12, 2 outputs are required from each non-miner transaction, even if this means one output has 0 amount. HF version mine 2 outputs. This improves transaction indistinguishability by mixing one output case with the much more common 2 output transactions. Previous to version 12, the core wallet software was already creating 0 value outputs. The core implementation sends 0 amount outputs to a random address. After bulletproofs were implemented in protocol version 8, each transaction became limited to no more than 16 outputs, bulletproof max outputs. Previously, there was no limit, aside from a restraint on transaction size. Mulvad has a lot of friendly operating, very professional as a company, I would think. Later, Billy. Well, I'm just thinking of like Monero. How do they accept Monero in cash and operate as a business? You know what I'm saying? Like, these companies are afraid that it's going to be used for money laundering. But what about companies that use cash? And cash is way harder to trace. I mean, Monero is harder to trace. But unless you you have a book where you took every cash transaction, you kept it to the cent. Monero's kind of digital. You can expose it yourself. Monero's just private by default to the public eye. I can choose to show someone how much Monero I have. I can choose to show how much Monero I've received, where I've sent it, etc. But I mean, it's on a surface level, it's private. Bulletproofs also have the advantage allowed to prove that multiple commit amounts are in the desired range at once. No need to prove each output to each destination in separate proofs. The whole transaction amount could be proven in one bigger but still very small brute proof. Okay. Maybe. To hide amounts of transactions, one needs to provide commitments to values instead of the values themselves. These commitments need to ensure certain properties, the most important of them being that the sum of outputs is no larger than the sum of inputs. In other words, if a transaction has two inputs, A and B, and two outputs, X and Y, we need to show that A plus B, X plus Y, equals 0 without revealing any of their values. This is not a very hard problem in principle but it becomes hard when your system is susceptible to overflowing. This occurs when numbers are stored using a fixed amount of space, and that means if a number becomes too big, it will simply disregard the most significant bit. Then an attacker could choose a very large value, X and Y, making A plus B minus X plus Y equals 0, because overflowing, while in reality A plus B equals A plus B minus X plus Y is far less than 0. To overcome the problem, above people use range proofs, which basically prove that a commitment corresponding to a number in a certain range, but without revealing the number. This way, an attacker cannot use very large numbers. Unfortunately, these range proofs require, if I understand correctly, a separate ring signature for every bit of the number, making them particularly heavy in terms of space. Bulletproofs are a replacement for a range of proofs that use far less space. I do not have a good understanding of the internals of bulletproofs, so I cannot explain them in this comment and does not answer your question. Sorry. So how do we ensure the person is making inputs to receive? Oh, okay. Bulletproofs will replace a mathematical method hiding amounts of transactions currently used. They currently use the method in the reason why the blockchain is pretty big. A normal transaction uses 13 kilobytes. With bulletproofs, this will reduce it by 80%, making the fees lower. The blockchain grows smaller, and I think the network faster. Current estimates implementation is the September hard fork, where I think extra hard forks between regular ones and option. Bulletproofs are live on the testnet. They work, but they need to be tested by professionals since it could risk someone's privacy and not properly audited. So essentially, it's to make the fees lower, faster, and the transactions smaller. Interesting. Yeah, because I forget that all this needs space to be sent. I don't know about European law on this, but Malved can have sub-companies in places like my country, perhaps, where no one gives a shit about tax inspection as long as you share the money with them. The man, Malved is definitely in a country that cares about taxes. They probably have. How does? Not an FBI. Love you, man. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping by. Report its Monero accounts. I guess Monero payments. You have to send them an envelope with your account number. No. Malved now accepting payments in the Monero cryptocurrency. Monero is designed from the ground up. It's as our goal, we run the wallet and the nodes ourselves. We do not rely on any third parties. We do not provide refunds and account recovery for Monero transactions, but all purchases using Monero, as well as any other cryptocurrency, get a 10% discount. So I'm assuming they, because they run the wallets and they run the nodes, they probably just hand their view key to, like, hey, we received. I don't know. That'd be a good question to maybe ask them. I'm just making an assumption. I wonder. Wonder how they do it. But I digress. Most transactions will contain more than one output. If nothing else, transfers back to the sender. Oh, if nothing else, to transfer change back to the sender. Interesting. Nice, sub addresses, stuff like that. All right, guys. On 30 minutes of reading a day. We will be back tomorrow to give the big old next section of addresses and sub addresses. You know how it is. Remember to argue in the comments and join me tomorrow in the next video. I hope you guys all have a nice